Greetings, my friends. It is Tuesday, December the 3rd, in the common year 2024. Today is the sacred day of the goddess Bonadea, or at least it used to be a festival reserved for women in ancient Rome. I will take this day for a day of reflection, since the Saturnalia days are ahead of us. A very sacred time, similar to Christianity, though Saturnalia had a different twist. Remembering the old days where there were no masters and serfs, no difference between rich and poor. Nobody had to work hard and all was free, gifted from Saturn, the king of the golden era. And then, of course, the great festival of Sol Invictus, which almost, Constantine being a follower of it early on, had become something instead. But it is not about those things that I want to talk today. About what I want to talk today is something dire and serious, and it comes as a rant. It is a Philippika about my friends, Romans and countrymen, of the Culturs, the Roman Polytheism or Roman paganism, however you wish to call it. First, let me tell it to you outright. And this goes especially to the great two organizations, Nova Roma and Byzantium Novum. You have lost the light of the gods. You have lost it. Patiently, many years have I been among your ranks. Patiently I listened from the sidelines, publishing my own books, writing my own reform suggestions. Now as no man, my suggestions and ideas I regard as infallible. But how was it taken up? How was it echoed? With silence. In silence, you murmured old rituals from 2,000 and more years ago. Bringing 2,000-year-old tales and rituals to an audience of the modern day. Yes, I know, as any other priest, which I am, priest of Apollo, the great Lord of Light, that religion, like spirituality, is not just something that bends to the spirits of the time, wanton bending the knees to whatever fashion is on top. But religion and spirituality, if it fails to speak the tongue of the time, to speak to the people of the time, to their sorrows, their pain, their joys, everything that moves it, then this religion and this spirituality is irrelevant. And this is what these organizations have doomed themselves and Roman religion to be. An irrelevant echo of a dead past who they ignore the reason why it perished against Christianity in the first place. And let me one thing make crystal clear here. My loyalty is to the Roman gods. It has been and will for the remainder of time. So I swore as a priest of Apollo, and more now as a servant personally to Apollo in ways which are beyond your small understanding. And as such, I bring you these words to chastise you in the last futile hope that you hear, that you listen, that you stop your errant ways. Do you think you serve the gods confined in small locations, gathering a few people, repeating the old traditions from the times of Caesar? Do you think that is what the gods want? To be forgotten because you reject any sort of listening to the times, of looking and searching into yourself and searching your own very soul, asking the big question of history: how could it come that paganism vanished and Christianity spread? And I deny to say, oh, it's because Christianity was the better. I am sorry if any Christian here is now applauding and gloating. No, I will never believe that. I've made my peace with Christians for the simple reasons that I know Christians who are good people, despite the holy book they adore. But enough about that. Have you ever pondered that there were reasons why our priests were suddenly no longer heard by the people? Why our cultures, why our religious practice became suddenly no longer worth defending by the Romans and the rest of the people of Europe? Yes, there was much aggression, there was much treachery, but we were not unknown in playing such games. That is not the reason, and that has never been. That is a story, a fable, a fairy tale, which you tell yourself crying, why have the gods no longer temples? And cry about the evil Galileans who overthrew viciously us poor helpless polytheists and pagans. No, the truth, my friend, is something much more sinister. It is the one thing I tell you that you do not wish to hear. It is because we failed the gods and the people. Or rather, our forebears did. For what is the aim of being connected to the gods? Do the gods need sacrifice like starving people who need to be fed? Is that what you think? Do the gods eternally need glorification, praise upon man? No, my friends. The gods have no needs, for everything cometh from the gods. And I take as my witness the great Socrates. He wrote in Phaedrus upon the nature of God and the relation of man to God. And he explained it in clear words, to whose words I feel bound to as the clarity which I have seen. Human souls once dwelled at the side of the gods, co-divine with them, and descended into matter to become man. And the sole, singular and only interest of the gods, the great 12 gods on high, and all the other gods, is one and only one aim, and has always been, is and will always be, their care about us to return to their side, to rise up to the divine planes from whence we came. Everything else of cultus, of practiced religion, of spirituality, is bogus. The gods do not need praise. The gods do not need sacrifice. We need the gods, not they need us. We have formed an accord with them, a covenant with them, for reasons, and those were not to conquer and enlarge empires. It was to understand ourselves, what we have forgotten about ourselves, the region from where we came, and many a soul from the realm of a different deity. So one who was like the soul nature of a soldier or a policeman or a person to bring order, coming from the realm of Mars. Some other in the arts and in the words of virtue and goodness, coming from the realm of Apollo and so forth, or from Minerva, Athena, a person who would be in the sciences and other things the like. Those are the teachings we have heard from the sacred Socrates. And the sacred Socrates he was called already by pagans and polytheists in the day. So don't come to me and tell me to use Christian phrases, as so often you kind have done. Always, and in every single case refuted and to be proven wrong by me by reading the sources. When years ago I suggested we have no temple, So what should we do? We have only our personal private rooms, most of us, or areas outside which are not sacred places in itself. What should we do? I said, we make a circulation and sanctify this place for a time as a sacred place. And dear the 12 gods, the horror that I was struck by my fellow Roman cultors, I would vicanize Roman polytheism. First, Wicca being the most successful paganism in our world, in our Western, I cannot see how this is an accusation. Learning from successful to succeed is not something I take as blameful. But the proof lies in the pudding. It is the silence to which the world reacts to your doings, your methods, which are the condemnation of the gods. I need not prove. The gods have proven it by making you silent and unheard. While Azatru, Wicca evolved and became heard by the people because they adapted to the time. While you murmur old formulas in your hidden places, but back to that thing with the circle. What was I chastised? What was I attacked? What was I ridiculed for this, Wiccanizing the sacred, unchanging Roman religion? I will tell you. The reality is that I can, and you can read it, read Plutarch in the lives of great Roman and Greeks, the life of King Numa Pompilius, the founder of the Cultors as we know it, in its first origin. That there it was written that in the ways of Pythagoreanism, which we know was not there, but a system similar to that we know existed before Pythagoras, that the priests in these days were making a circular movement to describe a place as sacred and put a flame in the center as a symbol of the holy creative flame, the flame divine. And so many times I quoted Plutarch, I quoted Socrates, I quoted other sources when I was name-called for copying from other things. Nay, my friends. Nay. Nay, my fellow Romans. Read the biographies, all of them, and you will see how many different ways the Romans practiced their cultus. Spontaneous in places, creating symbolic temples in places when there was no around. It was something you can read there if you stop reading secondary sources from Christians or atheists of the modern time who describe the Roman religion like a dead mummy and go to the idea of living polytheists like there were in the days of the past. What you do is adoring a dead body like the Egyptians, mummifying their pharaohs for eternity, instead of praising the living gods, evolving their ways, bringing it to something and asking the one question that no pagan dares to face. And that is the question I will throw into your face. Why did we lose to Christianity? And the answer is because the Christians had answered that at the time people needed, wanted, and we pagans didn't give. Period, paragraph. We failed. And what you want is to turn back the wheels 2,000 years, repractice it the way it was done 2,000 years, only to wonder and surprise why we get nowhere. Oh, my friends, you do no service to the gods, by mouth, by lips, but your hearts are elsewhere. You form senates, you create emperors, you create pontifexes, you create flamen, all these high, noble titles you give each other. We have no Roman Empire. We have no Roman state. our religion is no longer bound by the confines of politicians, and neither should it be. You're not politicians. You're not leaders of the world. You are average person like I, like everyone else on the street. Who gave you the right, the privilege to call yourself priest? Who gave you the right to form and say, I am senator, I am consul, I am rex sacrorum, I am high priest, I am Flamen? Who gave you this right? The line is broken. Then who gives it to you? Nobody does. You have no authority to give you any such title anymore, as I call myself high priest and greatest oracle of Apollon. That is the truth that you do not accept, and it is true nonetheless. So there is only one way to go and only one source to ask. The same that the people of old asked, the gods. For whom did Numa Pompilius, praised be his sacred name and work, consult? A nymph, a daimon, a guardian spirit, something the Christians would call an angel, of which the old world had plenty. Daimons being the intermediate spirit. Plutarch writes at length about the function of these being in the same, like in the Catholic Church, the angels, give or take. Nobody of you knows this, and when I speak about this, I am called the heretic. Have you read the ancient texts? No, you haven't. Or maybe you read them like a child overreads it, because nothing you practice, I see, has any consequences if you read those books. We know from Plutarch, he writes about the mystery cults. And then he says, I cannot speak about it because the vow binds me to speak about it, but I do not need to because all my readers know. I wrote about this fact and said, from this we can conclude that at least in the time of Plutarch, maybe even further, the majority of the Roman nobility were not just in a orthopractic cultus, like doing rituals just for the show. No, they were deeply spiritually interested in their own development. Even the bone-dry almost materialist, the esteemed Cicero, wrote that he had met people whom he was sure they continued work from past lives, to better themselves and to ascend in the way as Socrates wrote in Phaedrus. And you ignore this. Roman religion was never an orthopraxis. It always had the idea to transcend, and it rotted down in the same way as this idea was let go. When, unlike in the old ways, where people were searching, were connecting to the gods, were hearing the voices of the gods, as it has always been in all religion, the greatest enemy of the prophet are the priests. For the priests in pagan religions, just in the book religions of the Christians, the Jews, and the Muslims, the priests have always desired to shut down the prophets, to shut down those who hear the words of their gods. And this is what I accuse you. Those who come to you with words from the God's mouth, you silence by saying there is no such thing. There is nobody who can do this. It is like a holy book you have in your mind, and that is the cultus. It was practiced like in the days of Caesar. And this, my friends, pagans of Roman kind, of Greek kind, of any kind, is your guilt all along, to say only there is a sacred point in time That is the holy book we have in our mind, and from there it must be unchanging. And from there, like Muhammad, like Jesus, like Moses, afterwards nobody can come and add another word, because there is some final point in time randomly chosen by you from where the gods no longer speak. You put a muzzle on the faces of the gods in the same way the book followers do. And I will not stand silent a second longer about this, what I call a heresy, a mocking of everything what it meant to be pagan, to be polytheist, that our gods are the living gods. They speak always, give guidance and counsels to those who seek them. But for you, it is like a dry book whose remnants you claw together from almost crumbling old papers instead of something alive. Our most beloved Emperor Julian the Saint, the Pious, last of the pagan emperors of Rome, or Byzantium as you prefer, he spoke in his own writings against the Galileans and admitted paganism, polytheism, or as he called it, Hellenism, has to adapt, has to face the reality that people expect from the gods and from priests more. Priests do not serve the gods only, but they are bridges, like Pontifex is a bridge builder between the gods and man. And I, my friends, have 35 years, my life's work bearing witness before the eyes of the 12 gods. At the darkest hours of the night, people, when I was priest, could come to me, and I would listen to their woe, to their need, to the pain of their soul. And that is the job of a priest. And we guide them as good as we can, or give an ear if you feel you have no insight to guide them. But we connect them to the divine, we connect them to the God. You just repeat the formulas as if we are repeating something in a 19th century school where history was reduced to repeating dates of events instead of getting a comprehensive understanding of things. You are stuck in a 19th century view of paganism. No less is my accusation to you. And this is the point and the time where I can no longer stay silent. I am in this time of Saturnalia, and as one who wants to create an Apollos cultus, creating music and poems that speak, as I hope, to the people of our time. And I have heard this from people who listen to it. They hear of the promises of Apollon, the guiding light. Read the Delphic Maxims. How many of them echo the eternal divine wisdom of all corners of the world? Yeah, even from the writings of the Galileans, the Jews and the Muslims, you will find sayings which are like the sayings of Apollon in the Delphic Maxims. The warning against hubris. Find no fault in other, I think it's the 25th Delphic Maxims and so forth. Read it. Read it. Read the words of Apollon in the Delphic Maxims. Read what is originally written in the Times. If we priests, we who follow the gods of Orm, have nothing more to offer than a theatre spectacle, then verily we are superfluous. You, my friends, and I say this with the greatest kindness I can, bitter as fruitless my tries to convince you better is, still in the love for you and the pity about you working hard to no avail, And you ask yourself why. Here is the answer. You have nothing to say to humans of our time. Nothing but, oh, become Roman, get a cool fancy Roman name, get a toga. By the way, they never arrived, just side note. Anyhow, that's not the point. Put yourself statues in your room. Yes, that's fine and probably necessary. But religion is not a theater play. It's not a performance. If Mars, if Apollo, if Venus, if Jupiter, if all the gods do not fill your heart and change you, make you go out to the streets, and whom do you tell about you are a culture of Rome? Nobody. If you go to work, the Christian tells of his Christianity. The Muslim praises Allah. He makes no secret. But you, I know you, pagans of all persuasions. Not all, but of our most. Do you go to work and say, I need a 10-minute, I make a 10 seconds prayer to Mercurius to support this work? No, you make a secret as it was something evil. You fear to be identified as a Roman culture, and that is why the gods forsake you. If you do not have the willpower, the virtues, to let your family know, to let your friends know, to let people know, not walking around like trying to convert, but say what you are, demonstrate what you are, stand for what you are. And if you go to work, if you return to your family, and you are just silent like a regular atheist, then the gods will not smile upon you, my friends. What have you done then for the gods, if only clothed in Roman togas like it is the year 0? Sorry for the pun. Like it is the year, I don't know what, of the founding of Rome, like the days of Caesar, like the days of Cato and Cicero. You make LARPing dressing in ancient clothes, celebrate this like it is a market display, a play for people to enjoy and go home relaxed from the entertainment. This is not serving the gods. This is LARPing religion. And this is my accusation, that the chance we had, the chance we have in this most troubling time, you forfeit. You throw it away instead of giving people what I believe is the noblest religion under the sun, the Roman religion, which for our modern city days is even more fit than many of the pagan ways who are more oriented on nature, in which most people today do not live anymore. Blessings to them, I don't mind that they do, but it is not a religion for the present or the future. But the Roman religion could be, and mighty, powerful, guiding it could be, if you have messages. And if you do not found them in the ancients, then we have only one way to do it like the ancients did. To ask the God, to spiritually evolve. I further will reject the titles of anyone who calls himself priest who has zero spiritual development, zero contact with the God for whom he claims to speak, and just got his title by someone who declared himself, or in a democratic convention was declared high priest or whatever. This is not how a priest is chosen. You are no priest at all. Rien. This is enough. I told you in 30 minutes this sermon which you deserved and which you needed to hear. I know your reactions already. I have heard them all plenty enough. But by the Saturnalia of this year, I servant of Apollo, am silent no longer. I, seer and speaker of the God of lights, bring you these words from the 12 gods, and you reject and laugh about them at your own peril.